Hello and welcome to another episode of Rainy Day Brain. I'm Ken and we're on week 3 now, I think it is, of the happiness trap. So let's go ahead and just dive on in, shall we? So in this chapter we actually get some techniques to help manage the intrusive thoughts that we tend to grapple with on a day-to-day basis. So these are actual exercises that you can do if you're following along at home. And the goal, of course, is to hopefully manage our intrusive thoughts better. So the author spends a lot of time kind of laying out the core principle of ACT, which is basically thoughts are nothing more than words inside our heads, and those words can be used to tell stories. But it's important to recognize that the words that are inside your head are nothing more than letters, and letters are nothing more than symbols. Humans use symbols to communicate ideas more easily than they otherwise would be able to. So, when you break down intrusive thoughts into that definition, it should make them easier to manage, is basically what he's saying. He also stresses that we shouldn't confuse thoughts with images. Images are pictures in our heads that sometimes accompany thoughts, but those images are not the thoughts themselves. So he also uses the term stories interchangeably with the word thoughts, and that's something that ACT does regularly, I guess. He suggests that most stories are about how we see life, or about what we want to do with our lives. And the main goal of ACT is not to differentiate between truth and fiction, or false thoughts or accurate thoughts, but more to the point, ACT is about focusing on if any given thought that we're having at any point is helpful. Specifically, is that thought helpful to us in creating the better life that we envision for ourselves? So he says where a lot of us go wrong is to treat every thought that comes into our head as though it were the truth, as though it were an event rather than a story. And there's a word for that process that he uses in the book. That kind of behavior he terms as fusion. So if you're a little lost at that concept, do this exercise, which is also from the book, where you picture a lemon. So picture the lemon in your mind and really picture how it feels to hold a lemon in your hand. Imagine what the smell of that lemon is, or how it would taste if you sliced it open and just squirted a single drop of the lemon onto your tongue. We can almost get there, can't we? We can almost feel it in our hands. We can almost taste it. We can almost smell it. It can become a very real experience, just remembering or imagining a lemon. And we do that a lot. We do that with the books that we read, the stories we read. We get anxious when our favorite characters are in peril. But our brains do that with everything. They don't really discriminate. We can assign that level of realism to thoughts that have no basis in reality whatsoever. So when we have the thought that we're useless, or that we're weak, or that we're ugly, or whatever, we will assign it, we do assign it the same weight and importance as thoughts that we actually know to be true, like water is wet. But because our brain doesn't discriminate, we're assigning that thought of, oh God, I'm ugly, with the same truth as, water is wet. And that can be bad, obviously, right? We tend to believe our thoughts are orders, that our thoughts are automatically truthful and wise, and sometimes we even go so far as to assign a level of threat to our thoughts. We can react to our thoughts as though they posed real danger to ourselves. So this chapter of the book deals with how to lessen the impact of these intrusive thoughts. And he has 3 different ways that he goes into specifically to help manage these thoughts and to give yourself some space from them, okay? So that you don't just treat them as gospel. One of the ways to do this is to insert the phrase, I'm having the thought that in front of whatever the thought is. So for example, I'm having the thought that I'm ugly. Or you could try inserting the phrase, I notice that I'm having the thought that blank. So I notice I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough for this person. I notice I'm having the thought that I suck at my job. Those types of things. So putting that phrase in front of the thought might help you get some distance from the thought, so you don't automatically just run with the thought and make it true in your brain. Another method that he recommends, musical thoughts. So basically, you take a negative thought and you sing it to yourself inside your head to any happy tune would work, any upbeat, cheerful tune. Happy Birthday is the one that he suggests, but any happy song I think would actually work well. So if you have the thought, I am ugly and dumb, stop, recognize that you're having the thought, and then sing it to yourself, because it kind of robs it a bit of its power. The next method is called naming the story. So if we accept that thoughts are nothing more than words and letters in our heads that tell a story, then if we name them, we can rob them a bit of their power, so that our brain doesn't believe that those thoughts are the absolute truth of who we are. So if you catch yourself thinking something like, I'm fat, recognize that you had that thought and then say to yourself, oh, it's the I'm fat story again. So all of these techniques are intended as a way for you to give yourself some mental distance from the thought, to make you take a mental step back from it and remind yourself that it's not real, it's not the truth, it's just words, it's just a story. Now, he encourages you to try all three techniques and use the one or ones that work the best for you. I'm partial to the musical thoughts option. I mean, when I'm sitting there thinking to myself that I'm a failure, and then I sing I'm a failure to myself to the tune of the Macarena, it's a little hard to take that thought as seriously as I might otherwise have. So all these techniques are hopefully helpful for managing thoughts that we know to be false, that just are intrusive and they pop into our head and they bother us. But what happens if you're plagued by thoughts of things that you know to be true? Well, that's what he deals with in the next chapter, so that's what we will be covering together next week. That's it for this edition. Thank you so much. Until next time, I'm Ken. You take care and be good to yourself.